And we are off. Hi, gang. Welcome back. It's another episode of the comprehensive Miami Dolphins 2025 training camp preview with myself, Dante Collinelli, deputy editor of Miami Dolphins on SI. Dante, hello again.
How are we doing? Excited to talk about the big guys.
Little birdie tells me that interior defensive line just might be your favorite position on all of the football field. Am I right?
Yeah, that little birdie was right. You have some really good sources. Those years of reporting paying off. Yeah, dude, I love watching the big guys move, man. I like watching them run, shoot gas, stack and shed. Like I just think it's so fun. I used to like really love quarterback play, and that is just like completely pivoted in the past like 3 years. I just think the trenches are far more interesting, frankly. I don't know if that's a side effect of covering the Dolphins or what, but that's where we're at. Then this is going to be a really interesting group. A lot of new faces, some returning good players as well. Well, one and a half, maybe, depending on how you feel.
That's a big
enough. Yeah. So it's an interesting group. Plenty to talk about.
We should spill the beans. I don't want to make myself sound like I'm Kreskin or something. It's Dante's favorite position. No, actually, we had a little technical mishap where we had to re-record this episode, and the first half, Dante already told me that's his favorite position. Mine, you know what, might be like off-the-ball linebacker, a term which pisses off some of my colleagues. Looking at you, Scott Kennedy, if you're ever watching this, and safety. I like the dual. All the things that they're asked to do.
Oh, dude, those are two of my I can't stand watching safety
linebacker. Where's the delete button? Please picture delete. No, I can't. So the Miami Dolphins made news in the draft primarily because of their focus, almost obsession with defensive tackles when they selected not one, not two, but three of the big guys in the draft. Kenneth Grant from Michigan in round 1, Jordan Phillips, not that one, from Maryland in round 5, and Zeke, appropriate name, Biggers from Georgia Tech in round 7. They make up a group that also includes 2024 team MVP Zack Sieler, who probably will go down or close to it, because I don't want to immediately get caught with recency bias and forget about some 1970s guys. But as far as waiver pickups, pretty damn good one right there.
Yeah, it's hard to beat that one.
Yeah. And then the other one is Benito Jones back from last year. The Dolphins did lose Deshaun Hand and Calais Campbell. Ouch. And then they brought back players such as Matt Dickerson. I'm going to, off the top of my head, I'm going to forget because that's
Ben Stilley. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it. He's back. Ben Still.
He's back. Yeah.
Yep, he's back. And then Alex Huntley was a UDFA following the draft this year.
Yeah.
So that would be the names.
Oh, and Matthew Butler, who they claimed off waivers from the Las Vegas Raiders. But basically, it's pretty much the 3 draft picks, Sieler and Benito Jones. Again, it's going to be a situation of, can the young guys deliver? Kenneth Grant, logically, Dolphins didn't pick him 13th overall to not make an impact, and ideally he makes an impact quickly.
Yeah. No, I mean he's going to start, right? Like he's going to be a starter. It's going to be him and Zack Sieler on the interior, barring injury in week 1. And I think with Grant, and I don't remember if Chris Greer said this before the draft or after the draft, but he said, like, I think it was before the draft, because he was saying, like, hey, the guys that we pick, they're going to play this year. Like, we need these guys to come in and play. And was that no more true than on the interior defensive line, which I think is why you saw them take 3 guys headlined by Kenneth Grant, who is just, he encompasses why I love the position so much. He is gigantic, but somehow is really fast. Like he is quick. We've seen him run down running backs 40 yards down the field in college. And Katron Allen, who he ran down at Penn State, is not the fastest running back in the world, but that dude's going to play in the NFL next year. Like that's an NFL running back that he ran down 40 yards. Like super athletic, really, really big, a ton of upside. I think, the knock on Grant is typically, oh, he's just a nose tackle. Anyone who is telling you that is not watching the tape. They're not. They are just seeing big man who plays defensive tackle, and they're typecasting him as a nose tackle. It's not Kenneth Grant. He actually played more snaps in the B gaps as a 3-tech at Michigan, and that's who plays over the guard for reference at Michigan than he did as a nose tackle, which is someone who plays over the center. Now, that's not to say that he won't play nose tackle for the Dolphins a little bit this year, or that he can't do that at all, but you have a player here with the potential to play all of those spots, and that's why he is worth where the Dolphins took him. And so I think that's a really, really intriguing piece, but at the end of the day, he's a rookie. He's not perfect. His Michigan tape was good, but it wasn't great. There's a reason he wasn't a top 10 pick, right? So there's some things he's going to have to work on. He's going to have to figure out a more comprehensive pass rush plan. A lot of his best pass rush reps at Michigan was just, I'm bigger and faster than you, and I'm just going to overwhelm you. And that's not going to work as often as it did at Michigan, as it will in the NFL. So he's going to have to learn how to use his hands a little bit more. He's going to have to learn how to manage his pad level a little bit more. He can get pretty high just because he's gigantic, and that's fair. I don't think I'd be able to do better if I was that big. But those are the things that he's going to have to manage, and those are the things that are going to be with growing pains for him as a rookie. But he's going to start. He's going to play a lot of snaps, and ultimately, I think he is going to be a really, really big addition to this team, because I think at his worst, assuming the pass rush isn't where you want it to be in year one, which I think would be okay and is reasonable, at his worst, he is going to stuff the run. He's just too big not to. There is a certain floor with that type of player, and I think when you pair him with Zack Sieler, you can let Sieler get his 10 sacks. You don't need both guys to be 10 sacks a year. You don't. Now, hopefully Grant develops into that, and so as Sieler gets older, they can kind of share that load. But in year one, if Grant has 3 sacks and he helps free up Zack Sieler for 10 to 12 sacks, I don't care how many pressures Kenneth Grant has, if I'm being completely honest. So really interesting duo. I think it's going to be a strong start, and then we'll see how the depth shakes out. I think that's probably the more questionable part of this room, but really good start with Sieler and Grant. I think you've got a young player and an old player who complement each other, really well.
Yeah, and when the Dolphins go with 3 big and use a nose tackle, it'll be Benito Jones more often than not, and then Jordan Phillips can see some of those snaps. Like you mentioned, Kenneth Grant can slide into that spot as well. I see Kenneth Grant, and ironically, he was a 13th overall pick, which brings me back to 2019 when the Dolphins also had the 13th overall pick. And they took a guy who, I don't know, I see similarities in terms of play style and potential and ceiling. That, of course, being Christian Wilkins, who I might add, at the time we're recording this, has some kind of troublesome outlook with his damn foot, which has become problematic with the Jones fracture he sustained last October. Am I off my rocker for thinking there are a lot of similarities here between what I should maybe phrase that, off my rocker for that specific point of view?
No, I don't. I think the similarities that I would see between Grant and Wilkins is their development arc, right? Wilkins came into the league and was a really good run defender, right? That was kind of his thing. His first couple years, he was a really, really strong run defender, and the pass rush was okay, but it wasn't quite where you wanted it to be. And then he had that really nice breakout in a contract year. Obviously interesting. But he had a really nice breakout, right? It took him a few years to really become the pass rusher that his skill set would tell you he could be. And I think Grant, barring a surprise, which obviously would be great for Miami because that means he'd be better than you would expect more quickly. But that's kind of the same track that I would anticipate for Grant, right? I think he comes in, he gives you a nice boost to your run defense. You feel good about him in most situations, but you're going to need him to, it might take him a couple years to really figure out how to properly apply his athletic ability to the pass rush part and really open up that part of his game.
Yeah, and there is one big difference between the two that needs to be mentioned in terms of looking for an immediate contribution, because I think I would caution my hope is that Kenneth Grant comes in and balls out from day one. I don't know how realistic that is. And this is where I'm going to point out one big difference between him and Wilkins. Wilkins was a senior. Yeah, those existed back then. Played 4 years at Clemson, I believe he was a 4-year starter, had a ton of college experience. Kenneth Grant doesn't have that. And like it or not, that tends to make a difference.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think Grant played enough at Michigan. I don't know that I'm too worried about his experience being an issue, but you're right in that like Wilkins definitely played more snaps, definitely had more starts. But I think what's interesting for Grant is that he got to play on an NFL defensive line in the same way that Christian Wilkins is. All of Grant's teammates are NFL players, just like all of Christian Wilkins' teammates were NFL players. And even have the national championship connection. Michigan won the Natty. Clemson won the Natty with Christian Wilkins. So I agree with you, right? Like Wilkins probably a little bit more NFL ready just as a rookie, right? But like Grant is not a 1-year starter. This is not a player with zero experience. But there are going to be growing pains for sure. Like there always are with young players. You have to expect that. I would not expect Kenneth Grant to come out of the box with, 5 sacks in the first 7 weeks or anything like that, right? Like there are going to be growing pains. There are going to be games where he struggles, where teams get the best of him. That's the type of stuff you deal with a young player.
Yeah, and this is where a little fun historical fact for those who care. And guess what? I'm going to throw it out there even for those who don't. Because that's what I do. Christian Wilkins, we talked about his defensive line at Clemson. If you recall that year, all 4 of them were drafted. 3 of them were first-round picks. With Clelin Ferrell, who was drafted 4th overall by the Raiders, who has not panned out.
No.
It was Dexter Lawrence, who went to the Giants, I want to say 19th overall, who most definitely has panned out. And then the other one, his name is going to skip me right now, and I feel shame. Bad Allen. Anyway, but the other one also was drafted, I believe, maybe in the 4th round.
Austin Bryant.
Was it Austin Bryant? I'm going to look it
up. Maybe. I should know. I covered the draft that year.
There you go. We'll do a quick search. But anyway, we that's beside the point. The key guy, though, if we're going to talk about the defensive line, is Zack Sieler, and it's completely amazing just how good he's become from the time the Dolphins grabbed him as a waiver pickup from the Baltimore Ravens back in 2019 at the end of the year. This was the year, if you remember, it was basically every year. Oh, somebody got waived, let's bring him in. Somebody got waived, let's bring him in. Oh, somebody's available. I mean, they were just the roster turned over like nobody's business. And this was the gem of the guys that they brought in. And then you could tell like it didn't take long, like the next year, more and more and more, and he's just gotten better and better and better and better. In the last 2 years, back-to-back double-digit sack seasons. I believe he's the only interior defensive lineman in the NFL to do that. Team MVP, and if you don't understand his importance to the defense, he missed 2 games last year because of that crazy eye injury sustained in practice. The 2 games he missed with Buffalo and Arizona, which were the 2 games where the defense let down the Dolphins, particularly at the end of the game. And then he comes back for the Rams game, which may have been the most impressive defensive effort of the season. Not a coincidence, I would say.
I agree. Real quick, Austin Bryant.
It was Austin
Bryant.
Right
name. 4th round pick by the Detroit Lions in the 2019 NFL draft. Great Clemson defensive line there.
Yes, it was. Well done. Where were we? Oh, okay. So Zack Sieler. Benito Jones came back to the Dolphins after first starting here as a UDFA from Ole Miss, goes to Detroit, comes back, and I would say he was serviceable last year.
Yeah.
Average, slightly above average.
Yeah, I would agree. He's fine. If he plays like I want him to play like 350 snaps a year. Like that's the number for me. If you go a little bit over, a little bit under, sure, whatever. But like that's the range. He's a big dude. He's surprisingly quick. Like every 10th snap, you're like, oh, there's Benito Jones. It's like, and that's fine. Like that's a good rotational player. If the Dolphins want to go with 3 interior players, they want, 2 guys in the B gap, guy in the A gap. Benito Jones is probably that guy in the A gap playing over the nose, and doing that stack shed, keeping the linebackers clean. I think he's a serviceable player there. He's going to have competition for that spot, though. I don't think that it's going to be like it's Benito Jones' spot. call it a day. I think that's going to be like an actual training camp competition, is him and some of the other players that we can talk about. But I do think Jones has a leg up right now just because I thought he was fine last year.
I don't know who takes the majority of the snaps away from him at nose tackle, if I'm going to be honest with you. And here's the thing. Zig Bigger's a 7th-round pick, and he's got the size, and he can move for a guy that big. How can I say this very politely? Understanding this is all relative, and I'm just a journo saying this, so it's not me looking on anybody. Let's just say I wasn't physically overwhelmed by him when I saw him at training camp. I was expecting, I don't know, somebody more physically imposing. And with Jordan Phillips, oh, by the way, everybody, all of the reports are is just a massive worker. You show up in the morning, he's the first one already there. I also wasn't overwhelmed physically. He's kind of on the smaller size. He does have a thick lower body, but I was not physically overwhelmed. And again, this is shorts and shirts we're seeing in the offseason program. It's impossible for me to say he's not going to hold up. They haven't put pads on. I'm just saying the first look. But it's interesting. I would love to put his work ethic, his character, and his leadership ability in the body of the former Jordan Phillips and see what we could have. Because that dude was like a freakish athlete who was big, but had, how shall I put this? Let's say motor issues at times.
I think the new Jordan Phillips will surprise you when the pads come on. That there's a training camp prediction for you. I think he's going to be one of those guys who, like, when the pads come on, like, he's better. You know, like I think he's got the perfect nose tackle frame. Personally, you want a guy who's like a little bit squatty, right? Because you want that player to have leverage over whoever they're blocking. And like, if you go and watch the Maryland tape, like Phillips fell to the 5th round. I'm a draft guy. A lot of draft guys had him ranked higher than that. We're wrong all the time. So I'm going to put that out the window. It happens. Everyone's wrong all the time.
Scouts are wrong all the time.
Right. But occasionally I'm right. I have my moments once in a while. But setting that aside, right? Like, Phillips tape at Maryland, dude's strong as hell. Like, he's really difficult to move. And you're, like you said, you're not going to get that in shorts and pads, no pads. Sorry. Like, you're not going to see that. He's not a gigantic guy. He's not that big. He's kind of, I mean, we would call him like a bowling ball player, right? In the draft community, right? Like, he's just kind of like this big round mound of guy, and you just kind of want to sit him in one gap.
I'm sorry, Dante, hold on.
Feel like he didn't look like that.
No, correct. I did not, because I've seen like the really good nose tackles the Dolphins have had,
right?
And I'm looking like, this is way before your time, but Keith Traylor, who's built like a garage freezer or something. I mean, it was just
it's a good one. Garage freezer is a good one.
Him. Who else did they have? They've had a couple. Larry Chester was like another one. He was built more like a fridge. He was taller, but my Lord, he was wide.
I wonder if Phillips drops some
I did not like his frame. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I think he's strong enough to do it. I think he would be the guy who would push Benito for snaps personally. But I think Benito has the leg up. I think going into camp, that's his position to lose. Like, he's going to have to lose it. But I obviously am higher on Jordan Phillips than most people. I think he's going to be a really solid defensive line piece for the Dolphins. I really do.
Okay. And to me, it's like, let's hope they hit on him like they did on Devon Gottschall, who also was a 5th-round pick back in 2017 in what was a really, really bad Dolphins draft, as apparently some people outside my place here have decided to make a lot of noise. Before we just quick look around the AFC East, and as always with this series, we're going to evaluate the Dolphins compared to other teams. Better or worse than last year?
Oh, worse. Yeah. I think long term better, right? Like, into the future, I think you have the ability to be better, but there is not any player that they added this year in year one that I think is going to be better than what Calais Campbell gave you last year. Like, Calais Campbell, for the fact that he didn't play all the snaps that you would ideally want a starter to play, was like tremendous whenever he was on the field as a pass rusher, as a run defender, really, really good leadership, locker room presence, for all the culture talk. I think Calais Campbell's a great culture player.
Yep.
I don't think they're going to do better than that this year. If the guys work out, if Phillips is solid, if Jones is solid, if Grant lives up to being the 13th overall pick, I think long term it's a healthier, deeper, better room. But this year, no, I think it's worse.
No, it's same here, man. Yeah, I mean, this is where the smart ass me would have said, like, because you said, like, for the future they're gonna be better, and I'm like, well, no, Doug. I mean, Calais Campbell's gonna be 42 in 3 years, so yeah. But I hear what you're saying. This was one of those where if the Dolphins are like, I don't want to say building for the future a little bit. This is what
they rebuilt the room. It's a rebuild.
Yeah, that position, yes.
Yeah.
I also like the Shanahan maybe more than a lot of guys. I think the Shanahan
he was solid last year too. I agree. Yeah.
Good complimentary piece. Okay, so if we look around the AFC East, let me read you this lineup of defensive linemen.
Okay.
Oh, and this includes defensive ends, though. Unlike the Dolphins, who really like sometimes use we say interior defensive linemen, but also at the end. Whereas, like this particular team uses more of a pure 4-3, so their defensive ends don't drop back. So this is the room: Joey Bosa, AJ Epinesa, Michael Hecht, Greg Rousseau, Daquan Jones, Larry Ogunjobi, Ed Oliver, Deion Walker, Landon Jackson. Holy crap, is that deep? Mind you, this is the Buffalo Bills. Ogunjobi and Hecht, both unrestricted free agent signings from Pittsburgh and the Rams respectively, will be suspended for the start of the season. But it's like all 4 starters are back from last year. That's Epinesa and Russo at the end, Oliver and Daquan Jones in the middle. And then you got 3 draft picks in here who are like pretty highly respected draft picks. Walker, Jackson, and who's the other one? I'm missing one. Okay, forget about it. Just those 2. And then you have Bosa also in reserve, who is a complete luxury. That's a pretty deep group.
Yeah, it's an interesting group. I want to look real quick. So so TJ Sanders was the one that we were missing.
Oh,
he
okay.
was their 2nd round pick from South Carolina. I would probably separate Bosa and Rousseau. To me, those are edge players. Like, they're not interior players. I don't know that I'd factor them into this conversation personally.
Okay. Fair.
I do think I think Zack Sieler is better than Ed Oliver. I think Zack Sieler is better than Daquan Jones.
No disagreement.
Right?
No disagreement. Right. What Buffalo stands out to me is the depth. It's just
I think Oliver's okay.
Oliver is just very inconsistent, but when he's on, that guy can dominate a game.
No, I think Ed Oliver is a good player. I think Daquan Jones is fine, but I would push Rousseau and Bosa to the edge. And if I'm looking at their depth, Larry Ogunjobi is going to be suspended for the first part of the year.
Correct.
The depth behind Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones is 2nd round pick TJ Sanders, 4th round pick Deion Walker, 2024 3rd round pick Dwayne Carter. Not bad players necessarily, but I think Jordan Phillips is better than Deion Walker. I think Kenneth Grant's better than TJ Sanders, and I think Zack Sieler is better than Ed Oliver.
Well, but then, okay, a little homework.
Yeah, how about that?
I like it.
There's some spice.
If we go by, and again, this is where we're going to say it one more time. Everybody is wrong about draft picks at some point, even
absolutely.
The scouts, which is why Eric DaCosta, GM of the Baltimore Ravens, who knows more than any of us who do these podcasts logically and pretty much admittedly, basically said his philosophy is give me more picks because we're all basically doing this, throwing darts, and the more picks I have, the better chance I have, which is why, going back to the offensive line, and I was scolded for this take that I said that unless Jonas Avainaya proves to be much better than the next guard who was selected, who was the dude who went to Tate Ratledge. Okay, then the Dolphins giving up draft capital will have made this a suspicious move. Okay, but if we go by draft status, logically, yes, Kevin Grant's going to be more effective than TJ Sanders. Just like, again, by draft status, Deion Walker is going to be more effective? Jordan Phillips, how it plays out, obviously is going to determine those things. But as I look at it right now, I see Buffalo as having really, really, really good depth. And fewer question marks than the Dolphins do. The Patriots, again, the big key with the Patriots is Christian Barmore, who missed all of last year with the blood clot issues. That dude's a player. If he's back and can play and has no issues, then that defensive line all of a sudden becomes a lot better than it was last year when it was meh. They traded Gottschall, former Dolphins to New Orleans Saints. They drafted Joshua Farmer from Florida State in the third or fourth. They also signed Milton Williams, formerly the Eagles, who also is a good player, who was great in the Super Bowl. Not sure he was worth all the money they gave him, but that's not my money.
He was to the Patriots.
Exactly. So that's become potentially a good starting group. I don't know that they have much depth. And the Jets, not necessarily overly notable, although they do have Quinnen Williams, who's a hell of a player.
Yeah, I think I would probably put Buffalo's probably one. I agree with you. I think they have the least amount of questions. I might put Miami two, if I'm being honest. I think Barmore. I think if Barmore's healthy, I think him and Milton Williams are probably better than Zack Sieler and Kenneth Grant this year as a duo. I still think Sieler's the best player of that group, but I just think Grant as a rookie is going to have growing pains. If Williams and Barmore are healthy and they play up to their potential, I think that honestly they could be better than even Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones, if I'm being completely honest. And then the Jets, to me, I don't see it on the interior. It's Quinnen Williams and then a bunch of guys who I don't think are really going to make an impact for you. Derek Nottie hasn't been good for about 3 straight years, and he's slated to be their other starter on the interior. So I don't know. I think you could flip a coin between the Dolphins and the Patriots. I think, who do you believe in more? Do you believe in Christian Barmore coming back from injury, or do you believe in Kenneth Grant hitting the ground running as a first-round pick? I think flip a coin. We'll see. But I don't think the Dolphins are outmatched here by any of the teams in the AFC East. I really don't.
Well, and this is where, again, it gets tricky, because if you narrow it strictly to the interior defensive line, they're not outmatched if Kenneth Grant delivers immediately. And that's always, you honestly don't know with a rookie first-round pick. You just don't. Final question here before we wrap this up for the interior defensive line. Who's the best interior defensive lineman in the division for you? Homer pick coming right up. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think it's Quinnen Williams. Yeah, I do. I really wanted to say Zack Sieler, but Quinnen's insane, dude. That guy's he's so good. Zack Sieler's awesome. Quinnen Williams is just as good and significantly more athletic. I can't find the argument for Sieler being better than Williams. I do think they're in the same ballpark, though. I would tell you that they're both elite interior defensive linemen. I would just give Williams the edge. He's a little bit younger, a little bit faster, a little bit quicker. But it's close. It really is for me. Yeah,
and this is a part where I point out that since I was a little bit of a clown, because I tend to do that, this is no slight on Zack Sieler, who's a hell of a player, who, as I've said before, is one of the greatest waiver pickups in Dolphin history. He is elite. And one thing about Zack Sieler, I don't know why I keep reading about him being underrated. Stop it with underrated. The guy's a baller. Okay. Let's say he's a 96 rating on Madden, and Quinnen Williams a 97. It's no slight on Zack Sieler. He's very, very good. That's going to wrap it up for the interior defensive line. Check out all of our episodes related to the training camp preview. All of them, actually. What am I talking about? More than 500 of them. Check out the written content at Miami Dolphins on SI.com. Please subscribe this video. It's important. Thanks much, everyone.